My Catholic Book of Saint Stories by Reverend Thomas J. Donahue. Mary, Queen of Heaven. The Blessed Virgin Mary lived a most holy life. She said yes when the angel Gabriel asked her to be the mother of Jesus. She raised him to obey the Jewish law. Our Lady stood at the foot of her Son's cross. Blessed without sin, she was taken to heaven, body and soul. There she was crowned Queen of Heaven by Jesus. We celebrate her Assumption and her crowning in the glorious mysteries of the Rosary. Saint Joseph. Joseph was the foster father of Jesus and the husband of the Blessed Virgin Mary. He always cared for Mary and Jesus. He found them a place in Bethlehem for Jesus to be born. When King Herod wanted to harm the baby Jesus, Joseph kept them safe by going to Egypt. He worked hard as a carpenter in Nazareth and taught Jesus his craft. Saint Anne. Anne and her husband, Joachim, lived in Nazareth. For years she could not have any children. The couple prayed to be blessed with a child. God answered their prayers with the birth of Mary. A faithful Jewish mother, Anne taught her daughter to read the scriptures. She also offered Mary to God in service of the temple. The name Anne means grace. She indeed was graced to be the mother of God. Saint Peter the Apostle. Peter was a fisherman called by Jesus to follow him. Jesus named him Peter, which means rock. He was to be the rock on which Jesus would build his church. Peter did not always show his faith in Jesus. He even denied him. Yet it was revealed to him that Jesus was God's Son. Peter was the first pope and boldly preached the gospel of Jesus. Saint Bernadette of Lourdes. Born in Lourdes, France, Bernadette first saw the Blessed Mother when she was 14. Appearing in a cave, Our Lady was dressed in blue and white and asked Bernadette to pray the rosary with her. Mary appeared to her 18 times. Once, a spring began to flow from the cave. It had healing powers. Our Lady knew that Bernadette would suffer on earth, but she promised her happiness in heaven. Saint Francis of Assisi. Although he was born wealthy, Francis chose to live a simple life. All of God's creatures mattered to him. People liked his poor and humble way of life. He taught them to devote themselves to the sufferings of Jesus. Moved by his holiness, many joined the 3 Franciscan orders he founded. Francis, who brought so many people to the faith, became a saint 2 years after he died. Saint Joan of Arc. Born in France in 1412, young Joan often prayed and received Jesus in Holy Communion at a chapel near her home. God called her to defend France and the faith when she was only 17. Joan asked the king for a small army. He agreed because he believed God's plan for her. Under God's care, she and her troops drove away the enemy. When later caught by the enemy, she was killed in a cruel way. Saint Patrick. A teenage Patrick was captured by pirates and sold as a slave in Ireland. 6 years later, he returned home. After becoming a priest, Patrick worked in England, yet he wanted to return to Ireland. In time, the Pope made him a bishop and sent him to Ireland as a missionary. Though it was not easy, Patrick planted the seeds of faith in a pagan land by his example, preaching, and gift of miracles. Saint Therese of the Child Jesus. From the time she was a young girl, Therese did kind little deeds for people. At 15, she entered a Carmelite convent in France. She lived her life by her little way. Each day, Therese did ordinary things, not only as perfectly as possible, but also with as much love as possible in order to please God. As a friend of Jesus, Therese had a childlike love of God and trusted Him completely. Saint Anthony of Padua. Anthony gave up his wealth and became poor for Christ as a Franciscan. When he preached, he touched hearts. In particular, he moved lost sinners to return to God and the faith. The infant Jesus appeared to him during one of his frequent times in prayer. Jesus showed his delight with Anthony's life by putting his arms around his neck and kissing him. Saint Rita. Although Rita wanted to enter the convent, her parents arranged a marriage for her. She was a good wife and mother, and even though her husband was a harsh man, and her children followed his bad example. When Rita's husband and children died, she at last became a nun. She lived a life of obedience and great charity. Saint Martin de Porres. Martin grew up with a deep love for the poor and all creatures. At age 15, he became a Dominican brother and joyfully performed the lowliest of tasks. Martin cared for the sick and spoke to anyone who needed encouraging, comforting words. His love for all God's creatures and his gift of healing led him to run an animal hospital, even though much other work filled his time. Saint Elizabeth Ann Sutton. Elizabeth is known as the first American-born saint. At 19, she married William Sutton. The couple raised 5 children. Elizabeth was widowed at a young age and became a Catholic not long after William's death. Always concerned about the education of children, she opened the first Catholic school in America. Elizabeth later founded the Sisters of Charity, which was the first American teaching order of nuns.
That's the end of the story. Thanks for listening to me. Bye.